Hey friend, Church D coming at you once again. Thank you for tuning into What Does It Take to Win. I hope your week is going well so far. If not, hopefully this episode makes it a little bit better. I just wanted to remind you that at the end of October last year, 2022, on my birthday, I released a brand new album entitled Streams, and I'd like for you to go ahead and check that out just by clicking the link in the description, and it's available on any and every platform everywhere. So wherever you get your music, it should be available. Also, you can check out some of my older projects, some of my older albums, my EP, some singles that I put out over the years. It's all available by clicking the link in the description. I also offer virtual piano lessons. It's a piano course that you can enroll in, and we meet weekly. And if you're interested in a piano coach, this is a separate service from the piano lessons. Feel free to reach out to me and I can be your piano coach as well. If you need some beats, instrumentals, etc., if you're a content creator, if you're a podcaster like myself, or you do anything that you need an instrumental to accompany, I have beats available. It's over 150 beats. You can access that by clicking the link in the description where it says get beats or lease beats, and you'll have access to that. If you'd like something a bit more exclusive where nobody else will have it, just reach out to me, send me a DM, send me a text if you have my number, or you can go ahead and email me and we can talk about exclusive pricing and we can get started on that as well. Also, if you are looking for a producer, I still produce. So if you need an EP done, if you need a single done, if you need a full-length album done, or any of your production needs taken care of, you can go ahead and reach out to me. You can access me again by clicking the link in the description, and we'll go from there. Just wanted to make sure that you were aware of these resources that are available to you, and that you're taking full advantage of them. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into the topic of the hour. Now, I'm thinking of taking a quick hiatus because I have a lot of things going on in my life, a lot of great things actually, that I'm really excited to share with you guys, but I'm just going to wait a little bit longer before I share it with you. But yeah, we have some great things that are happening in my life, in our lives, because, of course I'm married as well. So, but yes, I might take a little hiatus after this episode, so I apologize if you don't hear from me, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. This episode is going to be a little bit different. I'll be talking about leadership, and although I'll be sharing certain focal points, it's not going to be the traditional points that you're used to hearing. So the title of this episode is Lead the Charge. It's going to be a little similar to the mental health break, where I didn't necessarily just give points, but just more so things to focus on. So for this episode, I want to say I have like 4 or 5. I think it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 5 focal points. I had to count it out that I would like to share with you. The first one is humility and mentorship. The second one is discipline. The third one is influence. The fourth focal point is patience. And the fifth and final focal point is when to stop. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, lead the charge. So this one's for the leaders, those who are in leadership roles, or those who are up and coming. Or maybe you're not up and coming, but you know that you've been called to lead. But you're not quite sure when it's going to happen, but you know it's right around the corner. This one's for you. So first, let's start off with humility and mentorship. Before you can lead, you must first be able to follow. I may have said this in a previous episode, so it might sound like a bit of a broken record, but it's very important advice that I took, and it helped me to get to where I am at now. And I believe it's going to continue to take me a little bit further. So again, before you can lead, you must first be able to follow. When I was in college, I was taking a leadership class during the summer. I know who takes classes during the summer. It's crazy, right? I did. I was taking a leadership class during the summer, and one of the opening lessons that the professor gave was basically that most people fail in life because they can't follow simple instructions. And the example that was used was in regards to taking your SATs. If you're not familiar with this, if you're listening in a different country, shout out to you first and foremost. But the SATs, it's an exam that it's used to pretty much help you get into college. So if you don't do very well on the SATs, then you have to either retake them and get a higher score, or be okay with not going to a 4-year university. But I think they're beginning to do away with that. I can't remember. I took the SATs, what was it, like almost 15 years ago? Maybe, yeah. Anyways, that's another story. But yeah, so the example that was used was in regards to taking the SATs. And what the professor said to us was that most people were losing points on their exam simply by failing to enter their full name on the line that was provided. So the way it works is you'll receive a certain number of points for writing in your full name. Some people did not read simple instructions and they just entered in their first name, or they may have left it blank, or they may have entered in their last name. But in order to receive points, you had to enter your first and last name in the space that's provided. Okay, so just by failing those simple just by not following those simple instructions, they probably failed. But who's to say? Maybe they had high enough test scores. I don't know. But what I want to drive home is that you have to follow simple instructions, otherwise you'll fail. Now let's think more so about humility as it connects to mentorship. I'd say humility is important because it allows you to work under somebody who's already in the position that you're trying to get to. And you'll be able to learn from them. Let's use music and finance as an example. So let's start off with music. Let's say that you've been playing underneath the supervision of a really important, prestigious band leader or musical director. Somebody who gets like a lot of big time gigs at like important events, like say that are coming on primetime television or just at huge stadiums, etc., what it might be. So you're working underneath this musical director, leader, / whatever you want to call it. You're able to see all of the mistakes that this musical director makes. They might not make a lot of mistakes, but you're able to see what mistakes they're making and areas that they could receive improvement on. It might be as simple as they're teaching the parts in a way that people can't understand, or they're just not running the rehearsals in the most efficient way. Okay, with you being underneath them, you'll be able to sort of watch, learn, take in the areas that they need improvement on. And then when it's finally your turn to step into that position, you'll be able to say, okay, I saw my leader do this and make these mistakes. Now I'm going to try to clean that up and not make the same mistakes. And then going forward, the person that you begin to train will be able to watch whatever mistakes you're making and say, okay, now I'm not going to make those mistakes. And it just will continue until it's absolute perfection. Obviously, it's not, perfection because nobody's perfect, but you'll get to a very high operating level in leading as far as, being a musical director of that sort. Okay, now let's talk about finance. Let's say you work in the finance world and you have a supervisor who is doing the best that they can do, but they tend to make a lot of mistakes, or they're not very good at explaining certain tasks, or, just breaking up different duties and responsibilities for the team. When it's your time to take over that position, I'm pretty sure you'll have it in the back of your mind. Okay, my supervisor did not break up these duties properly. The information was not explained clearly. There weren't a lot of instructions on how to do specific tasks. And I believe you'll make those corrections. Or you might not make those corrections because you're working for a company that you don't want to be a part of. Hopefully that's not the case. But again, what I'm trying to drive home is to pretty much learn from your leader's mistakes, watch wherever they made their errors, and just make it better when it's your time to lead. So that's pretty much it for humility and mentorship. Let's jump into the second point, which is discipline. I'm going to try to speed through these ones because I don't want to take up too much of your time, so please bear with me. So as far as discipline, you're going to have to keep going when you don't feel like it. And discipline is what's going to actually set you further ahead than the competition, especially as a leader. So let's look at physical exercise or working out as an example. So let's say, I'll use myself again. So I'm not really a big fan of working out. If you look at me, you'll see that I'm kind of fit, but I really don't like to work out. There was a time in my life where I wasn't too fit. If you could check out some of the pictures, you might laugh. But as I grew, it probably started late teens, and then it stayed with me up until now. As I began to grow, I decided I wanted to make a lifestyle change and just live a healthier, more fit lifestyle, get into the gym, eat as properly as I could, get a lot of whole grains in, proper proteins and fats, etc. Occasionally indulge in, foods that aren't as healthy for us. But overall, I've decided to make sure I had that discipline. So, okay, back to working out. Let's say that you set up a routine to work out 3 to 5 days a week, and you go strong doing that for several years. Let's say 5 years, okay? You're working out 3 to 5 times a week. If you decided that, okay, I want to just take, let's say, a month off the gym, take a month off of working out for whatever reason, maybe just to regroup, or if you just want to take a quick vacation, when you come back into the gym and try to get back into your routine, it won't be as difficult to get back into your routine. Your body, your muscle memory will just be like, okay, I remember doing this, and you'll be good. Also, you might not see noticeable changes during this break period. Whereas if you are somebody who's just inconsistent and does not have discipline with leading a fit lifestyle and working out, you'll notice more changes. So let's say you work out here and there. You might work out twice a week, 1 week, and then you might skip 2 or 3 weeks and then get back into the gym and work out maybe one day. And then you might skip another week, and then you might try to work out 3 to 5 times the next week. The inconsistency and the lack of discipline is going to show physically and also mentally. There's a really strong connection between mental and physical. Pretty much you can't physically do anything unless you train your mind to do it. And that's going to show, especially as a leader. Okay, so we talked about working out and use that as an example with discipline. Well, let's talk about production. As you know, I produce as well. I make beats. And as I said at the beginning of this episode, and pretty much all of the previous episodes I made beats. I have over 150 plus beats. I decided, it was a couple years back, on my birthday, that I would just consistently start making beats. I set a goal where I would just make maybe 2 to 3 beats a day, mix and master it, and just upload them. So whoever needs them, they can easily access them, and they can just lease it, or they could share it with their friends. And, they can put it to good use. There were many times and many days in which I just did not feel like turning on my computer and making beats, or I'd be burnt out. I'd be pretty tired. And, I'd had like long days at work, or just dealing with other stuff, the everyday struggle or the challenges of life. And I did not feel like making beats. But the good news is I consistently made beats for at least, I want to say 6 months straight, where I didn't take any breaks. So I disciplined myself to do that. So when I did finally take a break, I was already ahead of the game. I may have already cranked out at that point. I can't remember. It might have been like 50 or 60 beats that were just already uploaded, mixed, mastered, and ready to go. But if my competition was looking at me, they're not going to catch up if they're not disciplined enough to say, okay, I'm going to make X amount of beats each day before I take a break. So just have that discipline. Say, no matter what's going to happen, if the ground starts to shake a little bit, if my mood is up and down, I'm going to keep going until I absolutely need to take a break. By the time you reach your breaking point, you'll be a lot further ahead of the competition. So the point I'd like to drive home is that even when you don't feel like it, discipline yourself enough to just keep pushing, to keep going. Even if the ground begins to shake a little bit, things become unstable, remain stable enough, remain disciplined enough to keep going, and watch how much you influence those who are looking up to you, which is actually a good segue into my next point, which is influence. If you want to be a leader, you have to be influential. It's a must-have in leadership. People should want to copy you if you're a good leader. And if you are indeed a good leader, they're going to copy you. They're going to want to speak like you, dress like you, eat like you, work out like you. They're going to try to do as much as they can to copy your habits if you're showing that, you can be influential if you're showing that what you're doing is working for you. So let's say, I don't know, I could talk about like entrepreneurship. Okay, so there was this person that I came across one of their videos online on social media, and they were basically explaining what their day looks like as an entrepreneur. It starts pretty early, but a common denominator that I noticed between this person and other entrepreneurs who were really successful was that they weren't actually working a lot. And that sounded a little crazy. So that began to influence me to try to put that into practice, not to be lazy. I don't want you to get this twisted. But what they were doing was they were working smarter than they were working harder. So the average individual who's not quite paying attention to certain things, I'm just going to call it certain things, will end up working a lot harder than the ones who are paying attention. So here's an example. The person I was checking out online, they were saying their day starts pretty early, but then, they'll have like, let's say the typical 9 to 5 work schedule. But between that working window of 9 a.m. till 5 p.m., they're probably only working 2 to 3 hours. And they just sort of let that window be open to answer any questions or to answer any emails. And so, that kind of got the wheels turning in my brain. Like, okay, how can I get like that? So I'm not going to be burnt out all the time, always working. And, I might make a decent amount of money here and there, but I'm too tired to enjoy it. Now, the person in this video, they owned their company. They were in charge. They were the leader. And I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be able to say, okay, you know what? I have this 8-hour work window, but I'm not working the full 8 hours. I'm just here available to answer any questions. I want to be able to do that, and I would like to be successful. That is an influence as a leader. Okay. You as a leader, you should be able to have an influence like that, whether it's, people who are coming up behind you are looking at how you handle situations, how you might handle conflict, how you plan out your days, how you're able to sort of communicate, again, duties and responsibilities over to the rest of the team, and so on. You'd want to be able to influence the ones who are coming up underneath you or even your team to do better. And so they don't have to work as hard, but they can work smarter and get either similar results or better results. Often I find that when you're working smarter, you get better results. So that's pretty much it for influence. I do not want to drag this out too long, so I'm going to rush on to the next point, which is patience. Now, patience is a virtue, yes, of course, and I think it's, again, another very important tool to have, especially if you are trying to lead the charge. Not everybody's going to get it the first time. So that's something that you want to keep in your mind. Although we all may have the capacity to comprehend and to understand, the truth is, it's just we don't all learn the same way. And this is why patience as a leader is very important. Just because you create a system that might work for you or it might work for a couple of the people who are on your team, it does not mean that it's going to work for everybody. You need to thoroughly examine your team and assess each individual's strengths and weaknesses, and do your best to meet them where they are. I'll use music again as an example. Sometimes I get put in situations in which we might not have the strongest musicians who are available, or even musicians who aren't necessarily proficient at their instrument. But as a leader, I need to make sure that I can get them sounding as though they're advanced on their instruments. And I do this by simply trying to assess their strengths and weaknesses. For example, one musician might have an issue with timing. The next one might have an issue with ad-libbing freely. And by that, I mean, when there's no charts in front of them, they might have an issue with that. Or another musician might have an issue with sort of just flowing with the artist, which is very similar to ad-libbing freely, but it's like a different level. I have to assess, what they're strong at, where their weak points are, and meet them where they are to help them get better and continue to improve. That way we sound like a very strong band instead of, one musician's better than the next and you can hear it. That's never the goal, especially when you're playing with a full band. You want to have like that one full sound where everybody sounds very professional. Okay. So yeah, that's basically all I'm going to give you for patience. If you'd like for me to elaborate a little bit more, just send me a DM, send me an email, and I can possibly do a part 2 of this, but I don't want to drag out too much more of your time. So I'm going to conclude with the final point, and it's basically when to stop. This is crucial. Most leaders don't want to hear this, and they simply don't want to stop when it's time. But we have to understand that our time will eventually come to an end because, times are constantly evolving. Not to say that advice that worked 10 years ago may not work now. It might still work, but you might have to update the way it's being delivered, just because times have changed. And not to say like that as a leader, you have to completely throw in the towel and give up. It's more of like an elevation to, let's say, an advisory role. So here's an example. Let's look at marriage, for example. You might be somebody who has been giving marital advice for, let's say, 30 years or longer. And the advice you might have given, let's say, a new couple of 2023 is, okay, you know what? Only one person should work and one person should stay home and take care of the children until, they're pretty much able to fend for themselves, right? Okay. This advice would have probably worked a few decades ago. Well, not to say that it won't work now, but it was more common a few decades ago due to, inflation not being so high. A lot of families could survive off of one income. Nowadays, it's becoming more and more difficult to survive off of one income. Not to say that it's impossible, but now we sort of have to look at what's happening with present day events with inflation, the cost of living going up, and, not so many jobs being available. I think now, since the pandemic, there are more jobs that are available, but people just don't want to fill them because of, I think, the work of home culture. I have to actually do a deeper study into that to give you all the facts. But again, the point I'm trying to drive home is the advice that would have worked, let's say decades ago, now needs to be updated and adjusted. So not to say that this advice no longer works, but we have to look at the present time. And so as a leader, we need to be able to make that call and say, okay, this has worked for me for 30, 40, 50 years, but now times have shifted. So how can I update my advice to work for the present day? Who do I need to talk to? Or should I just say, you know what? Let somebody of this generation give that advice and I'll work as an advisor. So just in case they may miss some blind spots, I'll be able to see based upon my own experience and I can sort of tie that in with what's happening now. Okay. And also knowing when to quit or when to stop doesn't necessarily mean you have to quit or stop. It could just mean that you need a simple reset. You might need to just take a quick vacation or a sabbatical. You may have gone through something that is eating away at you and you're probably not telling anybody else about it. You're just trying to keep working. But take that break, take that vacation. You need to reset and come back, just take time out to regroup. And once you come back, you'll be a lot stronger. You'll in fact be able to lead much better because you'll have that clarity and that mental focus will be there for you. And that, my friends, is the final point. This was probably one of the longest episodes I've done, but I hope it's beneficial to you. I really want those, especially those who are in leadership roles or those who are getting ready to pursue leadership. I want you to be able to have enough tools mentally first and resources naturally to be a good leader. When I was younger, when I was in elementary school, I had a teacher who used to call me Mr. President. And I'm just like, why would you call me Mr. President? I'm the quiet kid, I don't like to talk a lot, but I guess he saw something in me that I could not even see that I did not see in myself at that time. And I've been pushed into a lot of leadership roles that I didn't even think I was ready for, but I believe I've done a pretty decent job at them. If not, hey, whoever's listening, you can let me know. Okay, so that's basically it for this week's episode. I'm just going to go over the 5 points one more time. First one is humility and mentorship. Before you can lead, you must learn how to follow. You need to have discipline. That's the second point. Keep going when you don't feel like it. It's going to just put you years ahead of people. Influence. Being a leader is all about being influential. People are going to want to copy you. And if you're a good leader, they are going to copy you. Have patience. Remember, not everybody's going to get it the first time, and that's okay. Just be patient enough to change up your system and find out what works for your team. And last but not least, when to stop. Sometimes you need to take a break, regroup, and come back. Or maybe you're simply being elevated to an advisory role, and it's time for you to allow the younger generation to lead the charge while you offer sound advice. Thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope it blessed you and I hope it encouraged you. Hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to share this. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with people you don't even like. Share it with that person who keeps bothering you for advice. I got you covered. And lastly, if you'd like to connect with me, just click the link in the description for all of my content. I have some great things in store for you. Thanks for tuning in. God bless.